But Fritz van Maastricht has been studying the common law, which is even precursor to the Constitution, for a long time, and not just studying it from an academic point of view, and yes, indeed, very seriously from an academic point of view, case law and all the meat of the matter. He's also been influences in real ways in his life. Wonderful, and he's going to be our teacher, our instructor for the next 6 weeks. And so Fritz and I are working together. My job is to make sure things go smoothly, to set up all of the Zooms and the registrations, and take care of all of the logistical stuff, and really give him a platform to bring to you decades of education and experience, and have you integrate it into your life and really change the person that you are and who you know yourself to be as relates to government and the state. So Fritz, you want to turn on your video now and say hi?
Okay. Good evening. Good evening,
Good
everyone.
evening.
Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your interest in the subject matter. This is really encouraging to me to see this much interest. And of course, I don't have to explain why. All we need to do is look around and see what's been happening for the last year, how the pressure has been building and closing in around all of us. And many people are beginning to feel the pinch. So, but what I want to first tell you is that there is hope, and there's lots of hope, and a remedy, or I should say remedies, and ways to stop this oppression upon us as individuals. And the reason I can say that with confidence is because this has been my experience for about 50 years. And all those who were tuned in at the first introductory session for this course, I explained how I've had such incredible success for these 50 years, stopping these government attacks upon me personally, and also friends and acquaintances I've helped along the way, with such incredible success. And I'm going to say about a 99.9, all right, 99.7 or so percent success in dealing with the matter, and also obtaining a remedy on the very first encounter. And so I've taken my life's experience with this and began to package this for people just like you, because I want everyone, or as many people as can possibly be, to get a hold of this. Actually, it's really a lost knowledge, and gain this knowledge and understanding of it and how to apply it. And once you start to apply it, I know, because from experience with other people, they too have had the same similar results as I have on the very first encounter. Now, some issues will require going past the first encounter, but those are more on the rare side. And I also will instruct on how to deal with those. So again, don't be too disillusioned about with what you're seeing out there. Yes, it's affecting all of us negatively, but let's focus on what we can do instead of how bad it is. All right. And I think once we get into the meat of this subject, you're going to go, oh, wow. Oh, man, there is a remedy. Okay. So with that, Clint, I understand you want me to tell a story or an experience I had, probably my first real encounter with government. Is that right?
Please do. It's a great story. It is your first, you said. That's what's so cool about it, because these
folks. Go back to my first. It was 1971. That was my christening, if you will. I was 20 years old, didn't know much about law, except I knew that I was supposed to be a free man. I had a very strong sense of justice. So when, it's just like most people don't walk around with malice in their heart. Okay. I didn't walk around with malice in my heart. And we just know, I think all of you know that whether you know what the lost site may be or not, that doesn't matter, because in our hearts, we know whether something's really right or wrong, right? I believe that everybody has had that written on their heart and their mind, and that's part of their being. And they walk through life with this knowledge. It's a knowing. But many people extinguish that knowledge. All right. And then many people go off and do many horrible things in life to people and themselves. Okay. But most people I've encountered do not walk around with malice in their heart. They're basically good people. They want to be left alone. They want justice to be served. They don't want people to come and, rummage through their house, when they're not away. I mean, when they're away, and steal things, or be mugged on the street. We don't want that. That's why we have laws. Okay. So anyway, I'll start with my story. I was in a little town here in Idaho many, many years ago. And I had to go away for a weekend, and it was the late fall. And I parked my pickup truck in front of my apartment. And I didn't really know that there were signs, because I was new to the area. I didn't know they had certain times of the year that you can't park on the street because of snow removal. I mean, it makes sense. You don't want a car on the street if there's snow removal equipment coming by. But I didn't know that. So I was gone for the weekend, left Friday night, came back Sunday evening. And when I returned Sunday evening, I found there were 2 parking tickets on my windshield. And I looked at them, and they were both for the identical same thing. And I thought, well, one's Friday night and the other one is Saturday night. And so I got a little hot under the collar and thought, well, I could probably be okay with the 1 ticket, but 2 tickets? I mean, I wasn't even here to address the issue on Friday night. So I went down to the police station, and with these tickets, Monday morning. And the only one in the police station at that time was the police chief. And I asked him, I said, hey, listen, what's going on with this 2 tickets? How come I got 2 tickets for the same thing 2 nights in a row? I wasn't here both nights. If I was, I would have moved it for the second night at least. And he says, well, you know what? He says, it doesn't matter. He says, you just need to pay those tickets. And I said, oh, well, what if I want to contest those tickets? Where do I go? Because, I was young and still kind of dumb. Where do I go to contest these things? He says, right here. I said, what do you mean right here? This is the police station, your executive department. I said, where's the court? He says, I am the court. Get a load of that, folks. This is the police chief, head of the executive branch in that area, and telling me that he's now also the court. And I thought, well, that's strange. I said, no, I'm not going to come into your office and, get involved in court with you. Okay, I'm going to go see the judge. So what happened was I walked out of there, and he says, well, either you pay it or we're going to arrest you. We're going to issue a warrant for your arrest, and we're going to get you. I said, okay, fine. You do what you have to do. I'll do what I have to do. So the next day I went down to the court, and I actually talked to a judge, state judge. And he was certifiably blind. And as it turned out, it was blind justice that he was administering, because I ran the whole scenario by him, and he told me, you know what? We just have to bring this matter to court. And that's the name of it. Okay, that's what we have to do. And I says, what do you mean we have to take it to court? I said, I haven't even been formally charged with this thing. And he says, well, we have to get you into court so we can find out whether you committed a wrong or not. I thought, well, that is reverse logic. So anyway, I walked out of there in disappointment. I ended up going to the law section in the library at the college I was attending at the time, and started learning law. I started digging into the books, and I discovered some amazing things. First time in my life I'd ever done that. And I bookmarked a lot of these things. So then, I was pretty confident that I was in the right. And I had all these law sites and stuff in my briefcase. And it was probably 3.5 or so weeks later, at my apartment, there was a knock on the door, and my sister answered the telephone. She answered the door and said, "Hey, Fritz, the police are here. They have a warrant for your arrest." And I said, "What?" I said, "Warrant?" And I was in the back by the kitchen, and I said to her, I said, "Well, tell them to produce the warrant. Have them show you the warrant." And she said, "Well, you need to show me the warrant." And they said, "We don't have to show you the warrant." "Oh, yes, you do. And I read the law that you have to show me the warrant." So they huffed and puffed, and they handed my sister a piece of paper. They said, "Well, all right, here's the warrant." And my sister was looking at it, and she's no dummy. She looked at it and she said, "This is not a warrant. It's titled complaint." And I look at the signature at the bottom. Who filled it out? It was the police chief, who made a complaint to the district attorney, for charges against me. Okay, to have him go after a warrant for my arrest and for not paying this fine. And so she said, "This is not a warrant. You can't come in here. You can't make an arrest on a complaint form." They said, "Well, we don't know anything about that. As far as we've been told, it's a warrant." Well, anyway, I came out there and I looked at this piece of paper. It was not a warrant for my arrest. I already had all the court cases and law sites I needed to substantiate the fact that they cannot issue or they cannot attempt an arrest with a defective warrant or no warrant at all. Those are felony crimes, by the way. So anyway, I was standing at the door there, and they proceeded to push their way into the door to attempt to take me. And I ran up the stairway, because directly behind me, behind the front door, were the stairs that go up to the second level. I ran up there, and excuse me, you're going to get a sense of the kind of guy I used to be. Of course, I still have the warrior spirit in me, but you're going to get a real sense of the kind of guy I used to be. I ran upstairs. I got my rifle. It's a British .303 rifle, and I locked and loaded that thing. And I stood at the top of the stairs, and I pointed that thing at these two police officers down at the bottom of the stairs. And they said, "We are going to come up and get," before I actually came around the corner to point the gun at them, they said, "We're coming up to get you. Okay. You are resisting arrest." I said, "Okay, well, so be it." And I came around the corner, and that's when I pointed the rifle at them. And I said, "If you guys obviously do not know what you're doing. Do you really want to pursue this at the cost of possibly your life?" Okay. And I had this rifle pointed at his head. And what was interesting, his hand was down by his side where his pistol was, and his hand was shaking and trembling so much. It was hyper exaggerated, this trembling. And my sister from the living room yelled, "You know something, officer, you better take your hand away from your pistol, because if you draw that thing, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot." That's how upset and terrified this guy was. So what happened was, I said, "You know what? I'm in the right here, and your guys are not in the right. All right. And I'm going to tell you right now, the reason I'm pointing a rifle at you right now is because you have violated my rights here, which God gave me. All right. And you are trampling upon these. You are attempting to make an arrest without a warrant. That is the felony. That is unlawful. Okay. I have all the law sites here and all the court cases I need to verify that. All right. So, and even court cases that will tell you that if I resist you on an unlawful arrest, and in the scuffle you lose your life, then the courts have said, not one, but many have said, that I am justified. So you better know what you're doing. You better know the laws that you're attempting to enforce. Okay. So I told him, I said, "Now, if you attempt to come up these stairs, I'm going to tell you this. As soon as your foot steps on the first step, I'm going to pull the trigger. So I'm warning you right now. I'm putting you on notice that that's what I'm going to do. I don't want to do it, but if you force me to, I'm telling you what the parameters are. You step on that step, I'm going to pull the trigger." And I said, "And if you don't want that to happen, you two need to back up get out of this apartment, get back on that doorstep, and retreat from here, because I am not going with you. So eventually they backed up and got out of the apartment, stepped on the doorstep, and then they began to plead with me. Would you be willing to come with us in our car down to the police station so we can settle this matter? I said, no. And this went on for about 10 minutes back and forth. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I am not getting in the car with you guys, okay? Because I don't know where you may end up taking me, all right? Because you've proven you are not trustworthy. What happened was, I said, I will agree to drive down in my own car to the police station and meet you down there on my terms. And it will be my terms only. And my sister here is witness. And they said, well, okay. They discussed it back and forth. They said, okay. And they got in the car and they left. Went back to the station. And they said, okay, we'll expect to see you down there about a half hour. In the meantime, I got on the phone, called several of my friends. 2 of them showed up at the police station along with my sisters. And so I had some witnesses. I had my best buddy there. And I had my briefcase with all my law sites. And I get to the police station. Everybody's there, 2 officers. And I waited about 20 minutes for the police chief to come in, because they called the chief in because they wanted the chief to be there, because he's the one who signed the complaint. 20 minutes later, the police chief's walking in through the hallway, and I hear him yelling, what is so important here that you guys had to interrupt my dinner? This is 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening. And
same guy from before?
Yes, same police chief.
Same police
and I
chief.
said, well, I'll tell you what, it's important enough that you better get down here, because your 2 officers here just about lost their life over this issue, over a attempted arrest without a lawful warrant. That's a no-no, chief. And then he says, what do you mean? He says, we do it all the time. I said, I know, that's the problem, but you ain't going to do it with this guy. And then I just started whipping out my law sites and court cases, handed it to him. He read them. His whole demeanor changed. The police officer's demeanor changed. And he says, well, you know what? I need to get home to my dinner. What I want you to do is go down and talk to the judge. I says, I already talked to the judge. Okay. And that's where I'd like to leave this story right now, and then pick up with the next segment of this story, partway into the presentation this evening. Fair enough?
Wow. Good job. Amazing.
Now you know a little bit about my nature and demeanor. That all stems from a very, very strong sense of justice that I was born with. So,
what state and city did this happen in again?
Idaho, but I don't want to tell the city.
That's fine.
So next we'll be diving into the content of tonight's presentation. You have some slides, right?
Yes. So let me get a little organized here. Okay, so we're going to just dive into our presentation tonight, subject matter, and let me. You have. I need to have you, Clint, unlock my screen.
Oh, you're right. Yes, for sure. 1 second, and now.
Nope, not yet. Okay, there we go. Good. All right, let's see. Hold on here just a second. Okay. As you're all aware, the title for this evening's presentation is, or the series of classes actually, is the Great American Law Series, Overcoming the Oppression of Government. This is part 1. And what I'd like to do this evening is just go through an introduction to what will follow starting next Tuesday. All right. This first session is not going to be the meat of the subject. This is primarily for or concerning all of you out there and me, and our role in potential role of what is really going on around us today. All right. So let's see, I got locked up. There we go. Okay. I want to start off, make everyone aware that this is copyrighted material and that all my rights are reserved here. So, and I'll just read this so we'll get through it real quick. No part of this presentation or material may be reproduced in any form by photostat, microfilm, photocopying, xerography, audio recorder, pardon me, and any other means, or incorporated into any information retrieval system, electronic or mechanical, nor may any part of this presentation be distributed or transmitted in any form or by any means without the express written permission of the copyright owner, me. So
Hey, Chris, you may need to advance the slide. We're looking at the title slide right now.
Well, let's see what happened here. It didn't advance on your end?
That's right.
Wow. Well, it's been advancing on my screen here. Interesting.
Go ahead and try stop screen sharing and then start screen sharing again, please.
Okay, hold on here.
Zoom's a pretty cool tool, but it doesn't always work every time.
Okay, what's on your screen, Clint?
Yeah, we're back to the gallery.
Okay, I'm going to reset this.
Yeah. Okay, good.
What
now
slide do you have?
The third slide. The author is not an attorney.
Okay, so all right, are we on the copyright page?
Yes.
Okay, let's proceed. Sorry about that. Glitches, modern technology. Okay. I need to give everyone my disclaimer. I am not an attorney, and the following is not legal advice and should not be construed as such. No legal advice is given here. And this material is intended for educational purposes only. So if you desire legal advice, seek out a competent lawyer who will take your money and work to keep the key of knowledge out of your hands. All right. So this is the first part of a 6-part series, 6-week formational educational course. Tonight's topic of discussion is going to be on how we got on the road to tyranny. So just begin with that. And the purpose here of this course is really for all of us to stand up and take effective action against oppressive government. So, and this is where you're going to learn the nature and scope of the problems we face and where our remedy really lies. You're also going to learn the principles of the restored key of knowledge. Also, you're going to learn how you can exercise your superior rights, authority, and power by reclaiming your true divine birthright. And most people, unfortunately, don't know where rights come from, let alone how to access them properly. And what appears to be rights are really not rights at all, but are a deceptive way to get you to believe that they're rights when they're really a benefit or a privilege from the government. Okay, so once you know your divine birthright, you can access your rights and your authority and power. And these are all superior traits that you have. And I'm talking about being superior to government. All right. We all collectively, turn over so much sovereignty, if you will, to the agencies of government for the function of, civil government. All right. But we as people still hold the power. We still hold the sovereign powers. And so that's what I'm talking about here. We hold the sovereign rights, sovereign authority, and sovereign power. Okay, and then we're also going to have you learn how to equip yourself with proven strategies for dealing with government officials and agencies peacefully. Very important. So what you're about to see and learn is not for the weak or faint of heart. It is for a strong, morally upright, and virtuous people. It is designed to teach you how to fight, not with fists and swords, but with the truth, allowing you to move directly into your opponent when challenged. Okay, and now a little bit about the Great American Law. I wanted to just to give you a little encapsulation of what that title really embodies. The Great American Law really embodies the principles of liberty as expressed through the American common law and guidance of the key of knowledge, thus providing the mechanism for free Americans to securely access and partake of their divine birthright, where their true rights, authority, and power lies. Very important to know that. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, this topic tonight is how we got on the road to tyranny. And the topics we're going to be discussing revolve around the fact that people surrender their natural rights to government, trading them for privileges. We're going to talk about how people are going into bondage and giving power and energy to what I call the beast, and how people keep repeating their mistakes over and over again. And at the end of the segment, I'm going to talk a little bit about getting prepared for battle. And the battle, or the boot camp, like I said, is going to start next Tuesday evening in segment 2 of this series. Excuse me, but I'm just at the end of this, I'm just going to prep you a little bit for that. All right. So I love quotes. You're going to find that out during the course that I love quotes, because I found that there's so many people, especially people in the past and famous people and great people, that have and can say it so much better than I can. So Patrick Henry, we are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth. For my part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost, I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst and to provide for it. The reason I wanted to put this on the screen to show everyone is because my experience, and this may be your experience also, but my experience most all of my life is that most people, when it comes to the truth, don't want to know it. And it's fear, whatever, they just don't want to know the truth. And many people consciously make a choice to, turn away from the truth. And I find that very difficult to deal with at times. I just can't see why people don't want the truth. So they, just like Patrick Henry said, so he can know what he's up against, so he can prepare for it and provide for it. Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit about tyranny, since this is how we got on the road to tyranny. I'll give you a brief definition from Bouvier Law Dictionary. And by the way, Bouvier Law Dictionary is the official dictionary that our US Supreme Court justices use predominantly. Not completely or solely, but that's their predominant favorite law book. Okay, tyranny, the violation of those laws which regulate the division and the exercises of the sovereign power of the state. And technically, this is the way it's worded, but I would add plural to power. It's powers, because these are powers shared, that powers of the state have, that we gave them, and our own powers. So more correctly, the sovereign powers of the state. So tyranny is a violation of its constitution, plain and simple. by the way, just a word from our sponsor here. This tyranny is brought to you by the enemies of God, government, and society. Okay, James Madison, one of our founders of the American Republic, stated the accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary in the same hands, whether of one, a few, or many, and whether hereditary, self-appointed, or elective, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny. These founders knew what tyranny was. This is why they did what they did. And what they did is something that has been buried, the truth of what they did. And the true history has been buried. And most people don't even understand our own history in this nation correctly. And that's a very unfortunate thing. So even Plato, how long ago did he live? Long time ago. Plato knew what tyranny was, and he also knew about democracy. Now think about the statement. We're not going to delve in it in this session, but we're eventually going to get into, and you're going to learn all about the difference between republics and democracies, Republican form of government, democratic form of government, and they are not the same. Many people have been led to believe they're the same. We heard about the oxymorons, a democratic republic does not exist, I'm sorry. Okay, tyranny naturally arises out of democracy. The founders knew this. The Anglo-Saxons knew this very well. And we'll get into that later. So very important to know. All right, now is the time for action. Okay, time for action. The following is information the enemy doesn't want you to know or have. And the reason is because it contains an effectual, pardon me, it contains an actual effective proven plan of action for positive change that you can implement once you learn and understand it. This information, by the way, is so potentially powerful that if put into action by enough people, could upset the balance of the enemy's power in America and thwart their plans for world domination. This potentially powerful information that could upset the balance of power, it's not intended to overthrow the government of the United States of America. It is intended to overthrow the corrupt men who subvert the lawful government. I want to make that very clear. Okay, so before moving on here, there's some things that we need to get straight before we really move on, okay? And that's concerning our freedom. And I know this is a hot topic today. You know, most people realize that, hey, freedom, what freedom? All right, that's what we're going to talk about. So first thing we need to understand is that we are not free. Can you change that on an individual level for yourself? Absolutely, yes. And that's what you're going to learn. But we as a people are not free. We have already lost every agency and department of government. That was taken over, and the final nail in the coffin for that was after this last election was stolen and what happened on the 6th. Okay. So we are not free. And the United States is not a free country, by the way. The United States is another entity we're going to talk about. The United States is not the same as the United States of America, two different entities. Okay. So most of us think we are free, but that is not the case. You're going to find that out. Most of us lost our freedoms a long time ago. Okay. Fact is, most of us are subject to the jurisdiction and will of the government. Let's face it, we are subject to the jurisdiction and will of the government. Again, can you and I change that as individuals? Absolutely, yes. And that's what you're going to learn. But for the body of people in this country, they're under their jurisdiction and will. Okay, truth is, most people in America have gone into bondage. unknowingly, but they nevertheless went into bondage and taken into captivity. We are in the captivity stage right now. History repeats itself. I study history quite a bit. History is repeating itself right now. What typically comes after captivity, the next phase, is destruction, with many people perishing. Unfortunately, that's what history shows us. Okay? So, why are we not free? It's a question. Think about that while I continue here. Just think about why that may be. We actually live under a government which uses threat, duress, and coercive force of arms to get us to do what they say. And their permission comes with endless fees, restrictions, and guidelines on just how we are to conduct ourselves. And as we've seen here with COVID, how we are to behave, how we are to dress. Got to put on this beautiful mask. Now there's all kinds of styles of masks, and everybody's into the mask thing now. All right, we got to stay 6 foot apart. We can't have more than 10 people over at the house on special occasions, or whatever. It's just on and on and on and on and on. So, and this government has imposed itself into virtually every aspect of our private and personal lives, with total control as its primary objective. I think most people can see that. The government has become excessively big, secretive, overly abusive, in-your-face demanding, and totally out of control. It's become a vicious and destructive beast, committing serious felony acts. Yes, I use felony acts. They are felonies, by the way, including murder of its people on a regular basis. And yes, I've had friends murdered by the government, shot in the back, literally shot in the back. I can name them by names. And acquaintances murdered, several. And again, we are not free. Why? Because most all of us have surrendered our natural rights to the agencies of government. Very important to understand this. Okay? And the sad part about it is that most all of us have done this willingly, thinking we were doing the right thing. We surrender unknowingly by consenting to enter into agreements, contracts, obligations with government and bankers, who are our enemies, but we didn't know it. And yes, bankers are part of this government equation. Most mothers don't realize that when they have a child and they sign the birth certificate application, now they're subject to the bankers, because that's where the ownership of their child went to. It's the bankers. Most people don't know that. And this is the start of why most people are in the trouble that they're in. So why would people do this? Why would people do this? Why would we do this? Okay. And perhaps, Clint, this is a good place to stop and pick up with my story on the next segment of that. What do you think? All right. Let's see, I left off on the story where the police chief said, well, you better go down and talk to the judge about this. And I told him I had already done that. And that's when we parted ways. He went home, I went home, police, everybody went home. Was I arrested? Did they physically take me, put me in jail, and book me? No, they didn't. I walked away a free man. Okay, so later, I ended up with the judge again. And he insisted on taking this matter to trial. And I said, you can't proceed to trial because there's no due process that has been afforded me. Okay, there's no formal charges that have been brought against me. There's no verified complaint, and there is no injured party. All right, and you want to drag me into a trial, and I'm not going to submit to that jurisdiction. And so the judge was really committing felony acts from his chambers. They are felony acts when they treat you this way, when they turn a blind eye to due process of law and the constitutional provisions that they are subject to and also tied to with their oaths of office. So anyway, I left there and I went down to the sheriff, and the sheriff was in the same building. The sheriff, the elected sheriff, happened to be in, and I went and I got an audience with him and sat in his office in front of his desk, and I told him I'd like to, bring charges or file a complaint against the judge upstairs and for committing felonies, because here's what the law says, and I want you to go up and arrest this guy. Because I already knew then from my law research that if I bring, or any citizen brings, a felony complaint to a police officer, police chief, or what have you, district attorney, they're required by law to stop what they're doing unless they're involved in another apprehension of a felony suspect or case. Okay, then they must turn it over to another deputy or what have you. Okay, they must take the complaint forthwith. They cannot refuse a felony complaint. By law, they cannot. So I told the sheriff, I want you to arrest that man up there, that judge. And he looked at me and he sat forward, put his arms across his arms on the desk, and he leaned in toward me. He says, son, he said, he was an older guy. He was probably in his mid-60s. He said, son, he says, let me tell you something. There's nothing more that I would rather do than to go up there and arrest that SOB, okay, for felony crimes, because I am well aware of the felony crimes that he committed. And he has committed many of them in the past. And not only him, but the police chief. But he says, here's the reality of what's going on here. I just want you to know, I'm not refusing to arrest him. Yes, it is my job, but here's the problem. If I were to arrest him, I would be dead by tomorrow morning. And here's why. And most likely my entire family. And then he proceeded to tell me, that shocked the hell out of me, that I never heard before. He said, yes, there's a network within America, throughout the land, assassination teams that are there for one purpose, to keep people like me in check. We are not to arrest judges. That's a no-no. And that's why I'm not going to do it. And he says, if I had possibly more support in this town, then maybe. I said, oh, hey, I'm here. I'll support you every step of the way. And he kind of chuckled. He says, no, he said, I appreciate that. But he says, that's my reasoning. And so I respected that answer. And perhaps that's a good place to stop, Clint. And but anyway, the sheriff and I parted ways, and he was my only ally in that whole community. And maybe we ought to stop there, Clint, and pick up a little later from that case what happened.
Okay.
So, okay, great. All right. So back to why would people do this? Why would they trade their or surrender their natural rights to the agencies of government? Okay. Why would we do this? Okay. Well, it's because most of us believe what we see and hear and do as we are told to do. Okay, that's just been the way. That's the way it's been in this country from time immemorial. Most people just what they see they believe, and what they hear they believe, and then they do as they're told. They don't question. People are very submissive. We're supposed to respect the law, respect the government. We're supposed to respect the police. All right. So the problem with it is that surrendering our rights to the government comes with a price, right? And what I'd like to do now is just tell you quickly what is really meant by surrendering rights to the agencies of government. And then I'll give you some examples that you can look at. What it really means is giving up one's natural unalienable rights to do or not to do certain things in exchange for government granted privileges, benefits, and entitlements. It means you now accept licenses and permits with the required fees in order to do what you had a natural right to do in the first place. I'll read that last line again because I want that to sink in. It means that when you surrender your rights, you're forced into accepting licenses and permits with the required fees. And now you have to do things that you had a natural right to do under the control of the government. And they're going to tell you that you can't do it the way that you want to do it. You're going to do it the way we tell you how to do it. So, and I think there's a good place to tell you what the definition of a license is. Definition of a license, I'm sure many of you have heard this already, is allowing someone to do something which is either illegal or immoral. Okay, and licensing officially came about as a result of the issue concerning miscegenation. And early on in our history, it was against the law for a white to marry a black. All right, but there was a lot of people in that situation that wanted to get married. So what happened as a result of the Civil War and the subsequent decades and generations after that, how our form of law changed and gave us something other than what the founders gave us. And since they changed this form of government and the people weren't even aware that it happened, they now went into a different form of law where they issue licenses for things which are illegal or immoral. Okay, so you need to know that. And permits fall under the same basic scenario as licenses. Okay, the other thing that a license does, whenever anyone gets a license, business license, driver's license, doesn't matter. Just the term license is an agreement giving permission to the government and or bankers, by the way, permission to trespass upon your private property. Think about that. That's what a license is doing. It is allowing the government to trespass where otherwise they had no right to trespass on your property. That's why I'm very opposed to licenses. I've never gotten one except a driver's license. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why I still have one. I'm going to tell you how you can protect yourself by signing your name in a certain way that will protect your common law rights. Very important, okay? And thereby I am not subject to their restrictions. All right, so that's basically what's meant about or meant by surrendering your rights to the agencies of government. I'm going to give you some examples now. Here's some of the ways that people surrender their rights to government. Shutting their businesses down. Anybody seen that happen? Shutting their businesses down. Is that surrendering, or is the business owner surrendering his rights to government? Well, he has already, if they have a license or permits, he's already surrendered his rights. However, if he agrees to shut his business down and obeys orders to do so, he is getting deeper into another contractual agreement or a contractual nature of another implied condition that he must abide by. Okay, and I can tell you this about shutting businesses down. I would dare say that there is no one in this entire country, none of these business owners ever received in the mail or a personal visit from a government agent saying, here's an order to shut your business down. You're not essential, you must shut down. Nobody got orders like that. The only time they got an order like that is if they didn't shut down after they heard the rumor that the governor, said, oh, you got to shut your business because you're not essential, and that you must now follow the guidelines of the CDC, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then they come there with a cease and desist order, or they'll come there with the gun toters and they'll arrest you and fine you. So yes, shutting your business down is an agreement. All of these businesses were voluntarily shut down when there was no need to do so. If these people only knew the law, They only knew who they were and the power that they have in their hands. They could have stopped that. All right. Other ways people surrender the rights: business licenses and health permits, obeying unconstitutional orders. If someone tells you to do something and you don't do it, and there's no lawful requirement to do so, there's no liability. However, if you try to do the thing that they want you to do and you make the attempt to do so, now you enter into an obligation. Now you must carry through, and the Supreme Court has reiterated this over and over again. Now you must follow through to the end. Let you know how to put up. All right, again, get back to it. Stimulus checks, contractors' licenses, building permits. That one's a big one with me. I'm a general contractor. I am not licensed, never was. Doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm doing. I just never believed in licenses. And I got stung by, and I'm sure most of you heard the story I told about that incident, getting stung by the Contractors Licensing Board, okay? And I first encountered how I walked away a free man, and they agreed to leave me alone. And building permits. I've never done building permits. And we have a method to kill any process or challenge that comes to us concerning building permits. All right, how to just make that go away. And if you do it right, you'll get city attorneys fired if you do it right. Clint, am I still there?
Yes. And you've discovered the markup feature of Zoom. So go ahead, just keep going.
Okay, I don't know what happened to my screen. I got a big X on there.
Yeah, it's the markup feature. You just discovered it accidentally.
Did I wasn't touching anything.
Yeah, it'll go away.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see what happened here. Okay. All right. Back to where we were. Again, paying into Social Security. Drawing from Social Security is not the contract. It's paying into it. Using the Postal Service. Birth certificate application and marriage license. Signing voter registration card. Kids attending public schools. Filing 1040s and other tax forms. Welfare, food stamps. Paying property tax. Section 8 housing, etc., etc., etc. It goes on and on and on and on and on. Too numerous to list completely here. So what's interesting is people seem to think that as long as they can drive their government-owned car to the government-controlled store, to buy government-controlled food, to put in their government-controlled bodies, they're free. Well, that's simply not the case. We were intentionally deceived into believing that we must do what the government tells us because it is the law. All right. Again, we were very believing, trusting citizens, or free Americans, or we thought we were free Americans. And whenever they told us this was the law, we must obey, everybody just jumped on the wagon. Well, I want to share with you what the Supreme Court of the United States says about this issue. It's one of my favorite quotes because it says it all. And I have that on the back of one of my business cards. Okay. I'm locked up again. Huh? Okay, right there. U.S. versus Menker, U.S. Supreme Court. Here's what they had to say on this issue. Because of what appears to be a lawful command on the surface, many citizens, because of their respect for what only appears to be law, are cunningly coerced into waiving their rights due to ignorance. So let's quickly break this down to what they're really saying here. Because of what appears to be a lawful command. So there are many commands obviously out there from government which appear to be lawful, but they're not. And many citizens, because of their respect for what appears to be the law, don't question it. They just do. Okay? And the government and the bankers, they become very cunning, and they cunningly coerced people into waiving their rights because they knew they were ignorant. That's really what this is saying. I've been there. I learned my lesson. So
let's Fritz, let's take off screen sharing and then go back, go off and go back so we get rid of those red lines.
Okay, stop sharing. Okay. Now go back.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Interesting little feature there. How that happened. Okay. So how is it that we can be so ignorant, and include myself in that, early on especially? I mean, I started out believing that most of what I saw and heard was true, but then began to realize that at a fairly early age that something's not right with this picture. And when I started researching the law books, wow, did I find the truth? It really is. It's one of the best ways or mechanisms to awaken someone, is to get in these law books and look what the courts have said and look what history has said. So, okay, and go past.
You have knowledge. What happens when
Okay, yeah, I'll read. You have the 40 slide program on screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll fill in the rest then. So, what do you have on the screen right now?
Key of knowledge. What happens when it's lost or taken away?
Okay. All right. So again, how could all this happen? How could it possibly happen that all of this has happened by, from us surrendering our rights to the agencies of government? Okay. It happened because the key of knowledge was taken away. And we're going to get into next Tuesday's class session on what the key of knowledge really is and what a wonderful that thing is to be able to access and utilize remedies from that. So anyway, key of knowledge was lost or taken away. And so, interesting. Clint, just bear with me here. My other computer they're locking that up too. My God. Hold on here. Let me just pull up another one on my other computer here, because this is just, I apologize for this. I got to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm showing now the quote that came up next, which is, "My people are gone into captivity because they have no knowledge," from Isaiah.
Right.
And yeah,
let me just quickly. Okay, I've got it here.
Okay.
All right, let me just bear with me. So, okay, what happens when the key of knowledge is taken away or lost? Well, okay, you're showing the slide. My people are gone into captivity because they have no knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a couple biblical quotes here about what happens when there's no knowledge or knowledge is taken away. Next slide. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Hosea 4:6, and that, by the way, Hosea 4:6 continues on from that. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Then it describes why that is. Why are these people destroyed for lack of knowledge? And it's primarily saying that it's because people willfully reject God's knowledge. Okay, so moving on. As a result of surrendering our rights to government, the enemies gained tremendous power over us. Today, we're completely surrounded by the enemy, along with their agents who have infiltrated deep within our ranks. They have crept into they've crept into our society and government virtually undetected and unchallenged for decades and decades. This enemy, which I call the beast, has become so confident and emboldened for so long now that it realizes it can operate with impunity in plain sight, knowing full well that we will give them what they want as we are asleep and don't even see them. So they have been operating in plain sight. And I think this last to-do in Washington, D.C., a few days ago, a week ago, is really confirming that this beast is operating out in the open, and the way that these Congress people are speaking and conducting themselves is absolutely horrific. They're showing their true colors. But anyway, it's the individual actions, the inactions of the people that constantly feeds this beast, which is given energy and power to it. We need to understand this. It's very important. And especially when we and you as individuals grab hold of this knowledge and understand it and utilize it, you need to know what you're up against. And you need to know that the power of this beast is directly proportional to the power we give up. Very important to understand that. So this beast is currently in place in all the areas of government, from the top down to our most local levels. They currently occupy and control every agency of government without exception. They are self-serving and have become a government unto themselves. It's not a government under the Constitution for the United States of America as originally intended. It is not a government of the free people of America as originally intended. It's a rogue government secretly found within the Constitution for the United States of America. Let me read that one more time. It is a rogue government secretly found within the Constitution for the United States of America. I'm talking the original Constitution. This is something we're not going to get into right away, but later on in my constitutional course, I will explain that in detail, precise detail, where it is in the Constitution and how it applies and how they get away with it. We're talking doublespeak here. Okay. And this is a government that's hell-bent on destroying our individual freedoms and national sovereignty. It's accomplished nearly all of its goals, all of its destructive objectives, and will soon move to close this final chapter on America, freedom and its sovereignty. The Declaration of Independence will have no standing at that time. The Bill of Rights, well, that'll be just thrown on the scrap heap of history and forgotten if we allow this beast to continue. So time is running out, folks, and America has never faced a greater threat to its existence than now. We need to recognize that, and we need to be on red alert. Right now is a time to be on red alert. And not even the Civil War, World War I and II, Korean War, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and the Iraqis' war combined comes close to the danger we and this nation face today. This is a grave situation. Those wars were primarily distractions to keep the American people's eyes and minds focused elsewhere, while the real enemies inflicted major casualties to our freedoms and national sovereignty, nearly to the point of extinction. And sadly, what we're about to experience is the full impact of the brutality of a worldwide totalitarian dictatorship, which is currently unfolding upon us. Okay? We've been living under tyranny, forms of tyranny, and varying degrees of tyranny at all levels in this nation for actually generations. And it's now just to the point where it's about to transition into the next step. And if you follow history, you'll know what usually comes after tyranny. It's the brutality of a totalitarian dictatorship. Once it unfolds and it's here, I can guarantee you one thing: you're not going to like it. And all of these protesters on the street that are causing all the violence, burning and looting and murders, I can tell you what's going to happen to those people. Once this thing unfolds and it takes hold, those will be among the first that will be eliminated. Do you know how to spell murder? That's the bottom line of the communist regimes worldwide. That's what history shows us. The bottom line of communism is mass murder. So we need to pay attention to what is going on. We do not want that to descend upon us. And we have something very, very unique to all the world here in America, because we have something, not only do we have the truth, we have a remedy in law that we can really hold them to the fire, starting here at the local levels. You can hold them to, hold them at bay and literally force them out of office if you know how to do that. So understand that time is running out, okay? And we are in serious, serious danger. And what really concerns me is the number of informed people with the truth is frighteningly small. So we have to ask ourselves, why is this? Why are there so few people? Well, that's the way it's been in history, throughout history. During the American Revolutionary War, it was 5% or less of the population that got actively involved in that battle or in that war. So the rest of the population is usually sitting on their laurels. But, it only takes a few people, a few patriots with the truth to set brush fires in the minds of people, okay, to initiate change for good. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. And I know we're getting close to the bottom of the hour here, and I want to just speed up real fast. So try to follow with me. This whole thing is primarily due to this. Why we're not getting enough people to participate. Ignorance, complacency, indifference, and fear. And I think especially now, we can look around and see that this is what's happening. There's a lot of ignorance out there. There's a lot of complacency, indifference, and boys, there's a lot of fear. It's almost psychogenic fear. So anyway, let's moving on. I got a really good quote here from Colonel Bull Simons. He's a Special Forces Green Beret commander in Vietnam era. He had this to say: history teaches us that when you become indifferent and lose the will to fight, somebody who has the will to fight will take over. And from my military experience, I know that also to be true. And this is what seems to have been happening here in America. The people have been losing their will to fight for freedom. Most people don't even seem to know what freedom is all about, let alone liberty. And here's another anonymous quote. If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Now, I look at all of you here in the class. I don't direct that really at you, because you're here, I believe, because you want to know the truth. You want to learn, and you're seeking for the truth. You're seeking for answers. And most people won't do that. They won't step out and take a stand, or they won't go out and learn something. But this is applying to most of the population. They don't stand for something, and as a result, they fall for everything else. And also, because most people don't like confrontation, they are unwilling to take a stand. That's been my experience in my life. Most people do not like confrontation. Okay, but I want people to know: don't be frightened of don't be frightened of this thing called confrontation. You need to act, be active. You need to have a voice, and you need to be confrontational. Even the Supreme Court talks about this. I'm not talking about duking out with fists, guns, and knives. I'm talking about confrontational, verbally in their face, and then follow up with paperwork on what you confronted them with. If you do that, you've done your due diligence, then you will obtain standing in the Supreme Court of the United States. If you don't do your due diligence that way, the Supreme Court will not hear you. Very important to know these things. So confrontation is not as bad as you think. I actually enjoy confrontation, especially on this subject, because I've had such great success in shutting and stopping the mouths of these aggressors. Okay, so, and it's because these people don't like yes?
Can I you finish, Fritz, but I wanted to ask a question right after you're done. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, certainly. You want to wait till after then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll just continue it till then. That's fine. And again, because people don't like confrontations, they're unwilling to take a stand, and as a result, freedom in America are all but lost. Pardon me. This is the sad reality of it. excuse me, most people want somebody else to fix the problems for them and are unwilling to participate except for supporting and voting for their candidates. This is what most of the population seems to think, that that's what they need to do. And that's where we're going to get change from. Well, I can tell you, the only change we're getting is that things are getting worse. They're getting, they're not getting better in the sense of freedom, liberty, justice. We can all see that. It's patently obvious now. So if you choose to rely on and expect your elected officials and government to solve your problems, you'll only get more of the same old thing. More rules, less freedom, bigger lies, and heavier oppression. For some strange reason, people keep repeating the same things over and over, expecting a different result each time. Yet nothing gets any better in America as far as liberty, freedom, or individual liberty. It's not getting better. It's under major attack. We're under siege right now. But people still continue to vote year after year, decade after decade. And I have to ask the question, why? Well, I call it insanity. And I know probably everybody's heard this already. Insanity is really doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result each time. Well, if we expect remedy, if we expect change for justice and, our society to turn out better, we have to stop doing the same old things we've been doing. We have to do something radically different. And this is where the missing key of knowledge now being restored comes in. That missing key that has prevented us from getting out of this box. Now we have a mechanism for getting out of that box and really taking this government to task. And if you really want to know what not to do when attempting to change things, just look back in history and see what everyone else has done that hasn't worked. And then see who in history was successful at effecting positive change. Learn how they did it and then duplicate it. In order to find out on the timeline of history where a positive change did occur, we only got to go back as far as our Revolutionary War and the Declaration of Independence for the answer. And there you're going to find that the colonists developed the formula for positive change that proved successful, now get this, against all odds. Okay? And that's what we're setting out here to do something, to accomplish something against all odds, because right now it appears that all odds are against us, but not quite, because we have an ace up our sleeve, and you're going to learn that, and you're going to get so excited that you just won't be able to sleep. All right, so what do these colonists do? They utilize two formats for successful change. I'll give them to you right here. 1, revolution with a just cause. Number 2, they created a system of government which secured and protected their newly won freedoms and unalienable rights, while at the same time promoting the concept of self-government. Keep that word in mind, self-government, and individual freedom, although it didn't last long. And the reason it didn't last long is because the key of knowledge, which was restored at that time, was taken away again. And now, in recent years, we are reintroducing the key of knowledge to you. We're going to learn about the second method, recreating the government for ourselves, our own self-government, that secures our unalienable rights and promotes the concept of self-governance and individual freedom. And we're going to save the revolution for later, if needed. That's our last resort. I don't believe we're there yet, because I found that the power of the pen, the power of the computer, is much more successful than guns and bullets and knives. All right. What we don't want things to devolve to people is that this turns to revolution in the streets, because that we don't know, that creates a vacuum, and we don't know how that's going to turn out in the end. So, and as you'll see, we have the mechanism, the tools, and the knowledge and truth and the remedy that can actually avert a bloody revolution. Although there are those who want a bloody revolution. I'm not one of them. So if you're truly concerned about the survival of your freedom and America, and you want positive change, then it must start with and come from, guess who? Yours truly, you, the individual. okay? Not the group, the individual. Every individual must have this knowledge independently of other people. And once they have that and they know how to utilize it, then they can come together of like mind and become a cohesive force for good. So it really starts with you. This whole thing I'm talking about starts with you. So what I'd like you to do, and Clint, you have that slide up on the screen about making the list?
Yes.
Okay. So start off by making a list of the ways that you are currently feeding this beast. All right. And the reason I'd like you to do that, you don't have to share it with me or anybody else. You know, it's not a test. It's just for your own benefit, because I've had people do this in the past and they make this list, and, you know, sometimes they take a week or 2 weeks, you know, and they forget about it and they come back a week after that and they start making, you know, this list. And when they're done, they look at it and they go, oh my gosh, I had no clue that I was so deeply, you know, in their quicksand. Just how many agreements, contracts, and obligations I had. It's astonishing. So then I'd like you to make a plan for undoing these agreements, contracts, and obligations. I'm not telling you you have to do this. I'm not saying this is a requirement, okay? We can still succeed at many things, but it is better if you really are after liberty. And I'm going to define what liberty is later. And it's not what most people think, by the way. Okay. So by undoing these agreements and contracts and obligations to the best of your ability, then you can indeed become more successful in the long run. Also, we want you to learn the truth about your birthright and self-governance. Birthright and self-governance go hand in hand. And what you're going to find in this treasure chest called birthright, I'm going to describe later. It's an unbelievable thing that's inside this treasure chest called the birthright. Most people don't have any clue what that is. And it's within the birthright that true liberty is found. And we'll discuss that in detail at some other point. Okay, and then when you've gained all this knowledge, then you teach others. And once you have this knowledge together, then you can hold government accountable as a group. You become more successful. My point is this: if I had the success that I have experienced by my lonesome without anybody else helping me, to the extent that I did in the last 50 years, just think what you can do and 10 others can do, or 100 others in the community. It's astonishing. And I have people from my other classes that have done this. They didn't believe that it could be possible. And I'm getting reports of individual students who are having incredible results on first encounters that they're coming up against. So a lot to look forward to here. All right. If you'll learn the knowledge of the truth and then walk in it, then you can come together with others who also have and walk in the knowledge of the truth and become a cohesive force, cohesive and effective force for good. Okay. So what we really all need to do is we need to do our part. And what is that part? To begin with, we got to become active, vocal, and confrontational. All right. So we're coming to the close here. And what I like to do now is just give you a little prep on preparing to do battle. Okay. So we're going to just a little blurb here on preparing for battle, which we're going to start next week, Thursday. And that'll be your boot camp, the starting boot camp. You're going to get issued your fatigues, you're going to get your combat boots, and you're going to get your haircuts, so to speak. So, all right, so let's prepare to do battle. Clint, I got the slide here about the size of the dog. You got that one?
Yep.
Okay. Here's what I learned a long time ago. I learned it in life from my own experiences, because I'm not a big guy. I'm a small guy, relatively small guy. But I also learned this to be true in the military. Experienced it, saw it, and dealt with it firsthand. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. All right? Keep that in mind. it's my objective to help increase the size of the fight in you. That's what I'm here for. That's what I hope to see. And I'm telling you, some of these other students from these other classes that have come out, you know, they were quiet, you know, seemingly timid people, and now they're just like pit bulls, and they're just grabbing this thing by this bull by the horns, and they're just, I mean, in fact, the group with the knowledge base went into Santa Cruz County clerk's office with so many requests for oaths of office and bonds that the county clerk, after 27 years, resigned. Because I said, you need to inform her that all of those oaths of office that you attested to under penalties of perjury were done improperly. And the law says that that's a felony crime, and she got terrified and quit. Well, I had the same experience in Santa Clara County court clerk resigning over the same issue. So it's a very we have powerful ammunition and tools to work with. All right, so here's what we need to do to prepare for battle. Okay, just keep this in mind. You might want to jot it down so you can get a little bit ready for next week. You need to know who you are. Come to know who you are. And with this knowledge, you will come to know who you are. It'll become part of you. So when you walk down the street, you have your head up high, you're walking confidently down the street knowing who you are, that, hey, you can repel virtually anything that's coming your way. Okay, then get armed with knowledge and truth. Very important. Knowledge is very important, but what's even more important is an understanding of that knowledge. Then you want to step into you want to learn how to step into your divine birthright. That's where your true rights, authority, and power lie. And wow, that's powerful. Then you want to develop the fight inside. You also need to know your opponent. You know who they are, what they are, how they operate. Okay, and then you want to learn the art of confrontation. And that's what you're going to get from this whole series of courses. You're going to get, you know, the beginning of that fundamental knowledge, which is really a requisite tool to have. So until next week, I want to leave you with this. Okay, Sun Tzu, Chinese warrior philosopher, once said, if a man knows himself and his opponent, he need not fear 100 battles. If he knows himself but not his opponent, for every victory he will suffer a defeat. If he knows neither himself nor his opponent, he's a fool and will suffer defeat in every battle. And even our modern day military warriors know that that's true. I want to leave you with this. Remember, you need to become active, vocal, and confrontational in order to experience the success we're talking about. Okay? So there you have it.
Thank you, Fritz. And perfect timing.
And it was perfect timing, 9:30 I see here. So, and again, I apologize for that interruption delay. We have some technical problems here that are very, very suspicious. So anyway, I accessed my internet from 2 different independent sources, and they both did the exact same thing, and I've never seen it happen like that before. Anyway, there you go, Clint.
Yeah, thanks so much, Fritz. What an amazing, powerful presentation, and putting the focus right on us individually, each and every one of us individually. Very clear. And so, folks, look forward to an email with some resources, including recording from tonight, the slides. I'm going to also, as I said earlier, before we started the session, create some platform for we can be in communication with each other between sessions. And look forward to next Tuesday night. Make sure it's in your calendar for start at 6:30. But if you want to arrive early at 6 o'clock and hang out, get to know each other, share what you're experiencing, how you're integrating this information, this knowledge, this training, and get to know each other better. So with that, thanks everyone for coming tonight. And it's so great to see you, and I will we'll see you again. Have a good night.
Okay,
Clint, can
Clint,
I ask you a question?
Okay, Clint, do we have time for any questions?
Let's see. Well, we could go all night with questions. I'm sure that can we.
Well, that's true.
Oh, this is technical.
Oh yeah. Technical question. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's about my friend. She wasn't able to get on tonight. She has paid.
Right.
She paid today. Will she be able to access this?
Yeah, I'll get her caught up.
Okay.
I'll contact her directly and get her caught up.
Okay.
Thanks
Great.
so much, Jan, for supporting her.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are we actually able to ask Fritz a question if possible?
What's the question, Catherine? Really, again, because really, is it about the if it was about what happened tonight, the presentation tonight specifically?
It's about the oath of office. It's okay.
Oh yeah, so that's that. Yeah, that's off topic. I'll send me an email. I'll get your.
No, that's what he mentioned that. He mentioned about the oath of office, and so I think Catherine had raised her hand and said she wanted to ask a question here. So
It's all right. I can ask later. I'll send you an email, Clint.
Send me emails with your questions. I'm happy to get your questions answered. I'm just trying to respect people's time. And again, one step at a time, this curriculum is unfolding. The most important thing right now is for you to look at your life and look at where you're entangled and where you want to get untangled.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good.
Right.
Yes, any and all questions by email.
Clint?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Clint, I just want to put this out to all who are viewing right now. I'm going to discuss this with Clint, offline here, of the possibility, or whether we should or not give maybe just a special Zoom meeting, maybe 1 hour, just for nothing but questions. Okay. I'm gonna see if that's something we can fit in here. Okay, because I know everybody has questions, and there's a lot of them, and I don't want the questions to go unanswered, because I don't want doubt left in your mind. Okay, because there's so much going on, so much happening, and there's so many, things that are, unanswered, and you want answers. I understand that. I want answers, and I want you to have the confidence of getting that answer and clarifying what might be going on with your particular situation. Okay?
Fritz, I want to be standing at the top of the stairs pointing the rifle at between the eyes of the That's what I want to be.
Well, bless your heart. You just understand. I've gotten a little smarter, I think, over the years. I wouldn't do that under those circumstances anymore, because what I realized, at 20 years old, I had a lot of testosterone, right? And a lot of justice in my heart. And boy, I was being attacked viciously.
Yeah.
But we didn't have SWAT teams back in that era. We didn't have the button on the microphone thing that you can just push to initiate, silently the SWAT team into action like they have now. Okay. I personally went through SWAT team training years ago, back in the 80s, 90s, I mean. So I know what that's all about. We didn't have that when I had these encounters. So if I were to do something like that today, they will shoot me, kill me, and ask questions later. They don't care. So I want to avert that with you. Is there a time and place for that? Well, yes, there may be. But I also discovered that I didn't have to pull the gun on them. I could have dealt with that another way and still won and come out on top. And that's what I want to share with all of you, the know-how, exactly how to do that.
I just want that level of fight.
Confidence.
A lot of that comes from knowledge. So,
Right.
Well, confidence comes with knowledge and truth put into action. And it can come really early on, believe me. Once you start learning some of these principles, I have attorneys in my other classes, I've had them, that say, they're shaking their head and go, my gosh, they never taught this in law school, but this is the substance of the reality of law. And I said, that's why I'm teaching it, because they don't teach it to you. And get so excited because they are understanding these incredible divine principles, universal principles. So anyway, just want to leave with that. And I'm going to bid you all good night and look forward to seeing everyone next Tuesday evening. Hopefully we'll have no more troubles on the internet here. Thanks again for your participation.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Clint.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Yes.
y'all. Peace.
All right, good night.
Fritz, you rock.
I'm not sure who that was, but thank you.
Dude.